Hi, my name is Rebecca Bishop, and I did my presentation or my research paper on the False Claims Act. So what is the False Claims Act? The False Claims Act has been around in our country for a very long time. It was actually enacted during the Civil War to help fight defense contractor fraud. So what the False Claims Act is that an individual who works for a business or a company in the United States, as they're working for them, they become aware of fraud. And so then they have the opportunity to file a suit on behalf of the government stating this fraud. This is called a qui tam action. And once this action is filed, the government has 60 days to act. So what I really like about this False Claims Act is that it forces the government to do something. It makes them act on your tip instead of it just sitting there. So the government then has three options. They can review it and see that there's not enough evidence and drop the case, or they can pursue it because they see that there's enough evidence, or the third option is they can request an extension so that they can gather more evidence and understand what's going on more thoroughly. This may sound like they are just postponing, but I think it's good because it shows that they're interested in the case. So what are some of the positives of the False Claims Act? The biggest positive is that it encourages whistleblowers. This is the whole point, or a major reason of the False Claims Act. It helps people have incentives to come forward. A major incentive that the government offers is a monetary reward. When the government takes the company that committed fraud to court, they receive money because they assess a fine based on their fraud that they committed. And so the whistleblower has a right to some of that money because of the False Claims Act. Once the government receives the money from the case, the whistleblower can receive 15 to 30% of the monetary reward. Another major positive of the False Claims Act, I think, is that it helps people to feel like they're not alone in this battle. Like they're not the only ones fighting against the fraud of their company. And if they do lose their job, that they're not alone. It can be really scary to come forward and whistleblow on your company because that's your livelihood, and there's a huge risk of losing your job once you come forward. And so the government has tried to put things in place to help people feel not as scared to come forward. There are some cons to the False Claim Act as well. The biggest one that I found in my research was that the government can be very slow to act. Unfortunately, the government is understaffed, and the whistleblowing office is understaffed and overworked, and they have many claims for the False Claims Act coming through their office every day. And so when it comes to giving out the reward, or even deciding how much the reward should be for the whistleblower, they can be very slow. And this can make people, the whistleblowers, mainly feel really helpless because they could have lost their job and they have no way of pushing the government to give them the money that they deserve. And another reason that the government or the whistleblower office is really slow is because there's some information that they can use and some information they can't. So they have to sort through all of the information on the case and determine which information is viable and which one they have to not use. And so that really slows the process down as well. Another reason is that some people in my research said that it is against the Constitution. Some parts of the False Claims Act are unconstitutional. One example of that is the excessive fines. In the 8th Amendment, it says that there should be no excessive fines given. And some people question whether or not the fines given in the False Claims Act are excessive or not. At the end of the day, the False Claims Act is good. The government has it in place for a reason, and it has really helped the government to find many cases of fraud that they would not have been aware of otherwise.